So hello and welcome back yet again to another Lives of the NPCs, where this time I got a comment asking me to look into the life of Gunther Arcanus. And Gunther Arcanus, he is a Forsaken who is standing out on an island in the middle of Tirisfal Glades, and he doesn't have any quests or anything around him now, but back in Classic, he actually had a whole quest line that was attached to him that I'm guessing if you go back and play Classic, you can actually do those quests again. And during that, you found out that not only was Gunther a Forsaken and a Forsaken mage, but that he used to be a student of the Kirin Tor, and he and his two best friends, Bethor Iceshard and Thule Ravenclaw, were all in Dalaran together, and they were absolute best friends, and between the three of them, they created a single wand out of their three magic wands that they had. Now, Gunther was a very good student in the Kirin Tor, but like a few others, he was also very interested in necromancy, and he was a very skilled necromancer. During the Third War, Gunther and Bethor were killed, and they were raised by the Plague of Undeath. And his other best friend, Thule, actually willingly sided with the Scourge, but did not get killed. We'll talk more about his two best friends in a little bit later. But Gunther actually broke free of the Lich King's domination on his own. He also stands out in the fact that he is technically identified as a Lich. Not only a Forsaken, but a Forsaken Lich. And he is a very special Lich because he does not have a phylactery. Most liches use a phylactery and generate them a new body that looks absolutely nothing like what their mortal body would look like, but he has the appearance of a normal Forsaken. He was able to break free of Arthas on his own. Not even Sylvanas could do that. She had to wait until Arthas was weakened before she could actually break free. So he is believed to be one of the strongest mages in the game, although that could be mostly headcanon from players. But just the fact that he could break free from Arthas on his own was pretty darn cool. Now, back in Classic times, after he broke free, he thought that he was the only undead in existence that had free will, and that all other undead were Scourge slaves. So he raised a bunch of zombies, and he camped out on this island, which is where he still stands to this day. His best friend, Bethor Iceshard, actually learned that he was out there. And so he sent the adventurers off to him to steal his spell book and figure out if indeed it was his best friend Gunther. Once he realized that it was Gunther, Bethor put an enchantment back on the book and sent you back out to him. And then Gunther actually sided with the Undercity, and he agreed to join the Forsaken. Now, there was a quest chain during Cataclysm that was going to be Gunther out on the island again because he didn't want to serve Sylvanas, but that quest chain actually got scrapped, so poor Gunther is now just standing out here all alone on an island with no quest chain and no dialogue, which I think is a terrible, terrible disservice for this wonderful, wonderful character. And I kind of hope that eventually Blizzard might bring something back for him. So now that we've talked about Gunther a little bit, let's talk about his two best friends who I found out a lot more about as I was digging into Gunther's story a little bit. Now, in life, Bethor Iceshard was best friends with Thule Ravenclaw and our star of the show, Gunther Arcanus. And just like Gunther, he was turned into a Forsaken with the Scourge, and after he was resurrected, he became a high-ranking, powerful mage within the Undercity. It is said on Wowipedia that he was able to command a town's magistrate, and that he is also the head of the mage and warlock guilds. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. He is also the first person, I'm putting that in heavy quotation marks, but he is the first Forsaken that you see when you come out of the mage portal if you portal into the city itself. So that is kind of interesting. He also had a quest line. Obviously, it was the quest line that sent you off to visit Gunther in Classic, but he did not. That was completely removed, and the quest line that they were going to do with Gunther ended up being removed in Cataclysm. So just like Gunther, he kind of just stands there as you come out of the portal, and that's about all there is to it. Now, Gunther and Bethor and Thule are also mentioned in the book that you can find sometimes in Old Dalaran. The book is called The Losses of the Third War. You can find it on some of the various bookshelves all around Dalaran, and it mentions Gunther. It says, presumed killed during the events of the Third War and lost to the Scourge. And then there is a note in the book that says, Gunther was last in possession of my favorite pipe. If his remains turned up, I would be most gracious to have it returned. The third of the best friends is a little bit more of an interesting character, because Thule Ravenclaw, to give him his full name, is a human who willingly sold himself to the Scourge. He willingly sold his soul to the Lich King, and that gives us an interesting little look into his psychology. After the scourging of Lordaeron, Thule, along with legions of gnolls, set up inside of Fenris Keep, which, by the way, is an awesome place if you are an Alliance character to, set up a guild housing area. I mean, I know we don't actually have housing in this game, but a girl can dream, and it is a fun little town. Not so fun if you're a Horde character, because it's full of NPCs that are hostile to you. But if you are an Alliance character and you are just looking for a place for you and your guild to hang out, there is a lot worse places to go than Fenris Keep. But that's completely beside the point. It used to be the home of Thule and his legions of gnolls, and he seems to have been particularly powerful in necromancy, possibly as powerful as Gunther was, because he beheaded his own servant, and evidently back in Classic, that servant was still serving him even in Fenris Keep. Now, he used his warlock and his necromantic magics to create the rothhide ichor that goes through the bodies of the various rothhide gnolls that you run across. He also had an imp companion back in Classic. Unfortunately for him, during the Cataclysm, he was evicted from Fenris Keep. The Forsaken weren't able to actually kill him, even though evidently one of your quests back in Classic was to retrieve his head and the magic wand that he and his friends made. But evidently that really wasn't enough to kill him, or maybe he's also a lich like Gunther. But he has now obtained rare status, and he is living in a small camp that is just a little bit north of the Forsaken front. He's not actually always there, but when he is, you can kill him. He is hostile to Horde and Alliance players, and he's actually a lot of fun to fight. If you let him land attacks on you, he will transform you into various creatures. He makes kind of a fun little fight. And that is about it. Oh, I actually did find out a couple of interesting things as I was winding my way through this research into these characters. And one of the things I found out is I was kind of curious because Gunther Arcanus is a mage, or is a lich, but he doesn't have a phylactery. And so I was just kind of looking up phylacteries, and evidently they are a real thing, not obviously holding the soul of a lich in the real world, but they are used by certain Jewish scholars to hold pages of the Torah for prayer. So I thought that was interesting. I did not know that before, and now we all know it. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this look into not one, not two, but 3 NPCs that I didn't know all that much about when I started. If you have any NPCs that you might want to know a little bit more about, drop them in the comments down below. I love doing these, and I'll see you next week.